So your second essay is a Rogerian argument. This one is also 750 to 1,000 words. What we mean by a Rogerian argument is that you are going to address someone you disagree with and seek a compromise between your two differing positions. So this follows a very specific format. You want to start off indicating what issue you're discussing, maybe providing some context for that, why is it an issue, and indicate who you're writing to. In this case, you'll either be addressing a specific person, so you might be saying, dear whatever their name is, or you might be addressing the group of people who hold that same stance. So for example, to those who believe school uniforms should be mandatory. Then in the body of your paper, you're summarizing your audience's views in a neutral way first, before you get to your own point of view at all. We shouldn't know what you think yet. You are just saying what your audience believes. After that, you want to find their values, hopefully something that you share with them. You want to look at common ground you have with yourself and them. What do you agree with them on? Then you go to your own perspective. Notice that is at the end of the essay. Finally, you reveal that you don't entirely agree with them, that you have some disagreements and a different position. And lastly, you invite them to address the issue with you by looking for a compromise between those two positions. I know that some of this seems kind of weird, because why would you want to explain their own point of view to them? The point is that you are building common ground, that you are building a rapport, so from that you can work together. You make friends with them first, and then you can talk to them about your disagreements and what you think you should be doing. In your conclusion, you give the significance of your discussion as always. This paper, your main point is to provide a compromise, so your conclusion focuses on why that compromise is important. Again, since you are not saying how you feel early in this paper, you are not saying what your stance is until near the end of the paper. Your compromise, which is your thesis, comes near the end of the paper. It might be at the end of your last body paragraph, it might be at the beginning of your conclusion even, where you say, here is how we should compromise between our two positions. And there is a PowerPoint that walks you through outlining, designing your essay that goes into much more detail on each of these parts, including the thesis, that we'll get to in this as we work on this essay. Now, notice that I said you have to have someone that disagrees with you. So you should find an article that you disagree with. It has to be clearly argumentative, taking a clear stance, and you have to disagree with it. In addition to that, you'll need to find two sources that support your point of view. Now, while the article you're arguing against does have to take a clear stance, the articles that support your claims do not have to be argumentative. They just have to have information that supports you. So, for example, your article that you disagree with might be an editorial on why we should require school uniforms, but one of your supporting sources might be a scientific study on the effects of uniforms on grades, and they're not saying people should or should not do them, but you are. You will need to find the sources that support your argument through the Blinn library. That's another thing we're going to cover as we progress through this essay. If you have any questions over whether a source is acceptable, as always, ask your instructor if in doubt. Now, because the sources you do find through the library's resources are not always argumentative, it is okay to get your source you disagree with through an internet search. You want to make sure that it is a reasonable source. So when we talk about fallacies, we talk about the straw man argument. The straw man argument is where you represent your opponent in a simplified or warped way, so it's easy to argue against them. You sort of misrepresent them so that you have the upper hand. If you pick someone who does not do a good job of making their argument for their side, then you are essentially committing the straw man fallacy, because you're picking the easiest opponent to knock down. You don't want to do that, partly because you don't want to commit that fallacy, and partly because it's very hard to address someone respectfully and build rapport if you think they're an idiot. So you do need to make sure that whatever source you find that you disagree with is reasonably respectable. So don't pick the dumbest comment on a post, for example. Maybe it needs to be a published editorial, even a blog, as long as it's a very respectable one. And again, let me know if you have any questions about finding that source. So what do those thesis sentences look like? And remember, this would be toward the end of your argument. So an example of a thesis sentence might be, regardless of whether abortion is seen as an acceptable method of dealing with unwanted pregnancies, society as a whole will benefit if we endeavor to reduce the number of unplanned pregnancies that occur with. So if we unpack that, this doesn't actually reveal what side the author's on, but the author is addressing someone who disagrees with them on whether abortion should be legal. And they're using a strategy, we will talk about those strategies too later, they're using a strategy called redirect. So they're saying, hey, we don't agree on this, but here is something related that we do agree on that we can focus on instead. Another example is, while you may never agree with me that drug users should receive no further punishment than they inflict on themselves, I hope you have come to acknowledge that standard imprisonment does not address the circumstances of addicts, that we can work together to develop alternatives more conducive to rehabilitation. So in this case, the person writing the essay thinks that drug users are suffering plenty and we shouldn't be so punitive. Their opponent believes that drug users deserve to be punished for their choices, and so they are coming to a meeting halfway point. In this meeting halfway point, they are saying that they will do some of what their opponent wants, which is punishment, but also do some of what the writer wants, which is more rehabilitation and something that is more helpful. And you'll notice I just updated this last example to reflect some changes in this assignment, hopefully improvements. So my last example is, I understand your reservations about implementing free college education, but because I still think it is valuable, I hope we can agree that if the community college program in Tennessee is still tenable after a year, we can implement a similar program in Texas. So in this case, the writer is in favor of free college or government-funded college. The opponent believes that that would be a mistake, and the writer is giving them a trial period. So in this case, they're saying our compromise is to see if it works first, and then if it works, we can do it. So there's a lot of different ways you can compromise. My one warning I do have for you is that make sure that you are not addressing someone that you disagree with so terribly that you cannot treat them nicely, that you cannot be understanding, have an understanding tone, that you cannot come to some kind of middle ground, redirect, compromise with them. So while I hope that you pick something that you care about to write about, I also don't want you to care so much that you're not able to maintain that diplomatic tone. As always, our writing assignments need MLA formatting, appropriate tone, formal grammar, punctuation, spelling, 12-point Times New Roman font.